Hi guys, this is a short video for Chapter 14 on media freedom, regulation, and ethics. And we're going to cover the First Amendment, and then we're going to cover some exceptions to this amendment that we all love and know so well. So the First Amendment says, basically, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Now, I want you to notice a couple of things about this. First of all, it says freedom of speech, and it says of the press. Of the press means that we're talking about journalism here, right? Journalists. So journalists are the only profession, shall I say, that is highlighted in these amendments, so in the First Amendment. So you have to ask yourself why the framers of these amendments felt that journalists or the press was so important to the process. You may have heard the term the Fourth Estate before. I believe our book uses it at some point. So you have the three branches of government. You have the judicial branch, which are the courts. You have the executive branch, which is the president and his cabinet and all of that stuff. And then you have the third branch, which is the legislative branch, the Congress. So they all balanced each other out with checks and balances. But the framers of this amendment felt that the press needed to be in there too. And they're often called the Fourth Estate because they help to get at truth. They help to hold the people in power accountable, and they help to educate or give information to the citizenry so that the citizenry can be an informed population who participates in the democratic process, right? Because we vote, so we need to have some information. So that is the press, journalists play a huge part in keeping our democracy going. And you may remember from our newspaper chapter that when we talk about truth, it's not just this one thing, that we have to have multiple voices, sometimes competitive voices, to get at real truth. So that's really important here. Now, we're in an era now where to define who the press is exactly, or the press are exactly, is a little bit difficult, right? When you upload a picture to CNN's Citizen area where you can upload something, are you a journalist suddenly? What is citizen journalism? Are you protected by this? All of those are questions that are being gotten at right now. So anyway, back to the simplicity of this though. Congress shall make no law. That doesn't say Congress shall make some laws, or Congress will think about it, or will make no law except once in a while. It says no law. And so there are people who hold the perspective that the First Amendment really laid it out, no law. But in reality, on the ground, we know it doesn't operate quite like this. And that's because we often have other things that bump up against this amendment and the freedoms that it entitles us to. So let's look at a couple of those exceptions, despite the fact that it says no law. So we're going to cover all of these in subsequent videos, but the first one is clear and present danger, and we'll cover that one in this video in a second. And the balancing of interests, we'll also cover that one in a few minutes, and prior restraint, libel and slander, which we'll cover in another video, and obscenity, which we'll also cover later. So exceptions to the First Amendment. First one, clear and present danger. If I'm in the middle of class with you and suddenly I just get the urge, I don't know, it just comes over me, and I want to run out into the hallway and scream, there's a shooter, a first-person shooter in the hallway, everybody run for your lives. Can I do that? First of all, you all think I'm crazy. I'll probably lose my job. But also, couldn't I get in trouble with the law for doing that? If you wanted to be in a theater, can you get up from your seat and suddenly yell, there's a fire? You can't do that. You also can't drive your car with your bass, bumping down the street, and yes, I did just say bumping, down the street with your speakers blasting at 2 in the morning, right? You could say, but I have First Amendment protection, I can do this, but you can't, because if there is, especially in those first two examples, clear and present danger to people that they're going to be crushed by people trying to exit the building or people freaking out thinking there's a shooter on campus, that gets in the way of other rights that we have. And that's the big thing about the First Amendment, is that we really value it, but sometimes it bumps up against other things that we really also value. So that's where, especially in terms of important things that bump up against each other, balancing of interests comes in. So we have the First Amendment, which entitles us to freedom of speech and a free press. But we also have the Sixth Amendment, also really important. It entitles us to a fair trial. If we get charged with something, we want to have a fair trial with a jury of our peers and know that we're going to get, a chance to plead our case. So, or defend ourselves. But this becomes problematic in light of the First Amendment because pre-trial publicity can make it so that somebody can't get a fair trial. If there's too much press on it and too much public information about what's going on in the press, then it's hard to get 12 people, your jurors, to come in who aren't already influenced by the whole thing. You're going to have a hard time doing that. And that's why sometimes they move a trial. They'll move it from the place where the crime happened and where normally you would try that person to a totally other location because the pre-trial publicity has been so intense that everybody has an opinion about the person. The second area where these amendments kind of bump up against each other are cameras in the courtroom. So that can be a real distraction. It's been referred to as creating a circus-like atmosphere before, and it can disrupt the proceedings and a person's right to a free trial. Now, in the federal court system, they're still debating whether they're going to allow this, but in the state court system, the Supreme Court said it's up to the states, and now all 50 states do allow, in some instances, cameras in the courtroom, and that can often be up to the specific judge who's in there as well. All right, prior restraint. This is censorship in its purest form. Okay, we've talked about censorship with books and stuff like that, but this is really true censorship. This isn't self-regulation. This is the government coming in and saying, I want to see that before you publish it, and I might tell you, you can't publish it. That's censorship at its real most basic level. And we don't have it much in this country because of the First Amendment. But there are a couple of exceptions. Here are two of them. There are 2 times where prior restraint is allowed. At times of war, when national security is at risk. So if you're a reporter embedded with troops in Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere else, you can report you can report things, but you can't say certain things. You can't say, here I am with troop whatever located at this longitude and this latitude, and we, by the way, don't have that many guns left or ammunition. You can't do that. That puts national security at risk. The second exception that makes prior restraint okay is that if people are writing in a way that is trying to actually incite the violent overthrow by force of an orderly government. You can't do that. We have other ways to get the bums out of office, and that's called voting, right? So you can't try to foment a revolution in this country. We have a system in place for when you don't like who your leaders are. All right, in subsequent videos, I'll tell you about some of the other exceptions.